Please check out our sponsors NordVPN for the best in online security. It's the best VPN on the market, and you can try it risk-free now with a 30-day money-back guarantee by visiting nordvpn.com/heart and hand. That's nordvpn.com/heart and hand, and it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Hello everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar, and as always, I am your host. Some shows are, of course, more difficult to do than others, and in terms of a right kick in the nuts yesterday, and the League Cup final was very much one of those. It wasn't a total debacle, it has to be said, and I think a few weeks ago, if I have my hand on my heart, I would have to admit that I feared that. So I've brought in two guests who are usually a bit better at showing a bit of perspective on these situations than I am to try and balance my, shall we say, raw takes. First of all, the Sage of Saltcoats himself, Andy McGowan.
Hello, folks. Here we are again.
And accompanying him is our most experienced and battle-hardened campaigner. There is nothing he hasn't been through before. It's Alan Bradley.
I've got the bruises to show for it as well, David. Yeah, thanks for letting me on. Yeah, it's a tough one. And I think very quickly, if you'd got me at this time, or if you got me last night after the game, there'd been so much emotion. I think that now it's probably 80-20 objectivity. So hopefully we're at that stage, David. Anyway, yeah.
I'm not. But that's why
you're younger.
Yeah, I'm not. I wish. Andy, look, if I'm being totally honest, see after that Dundee United game, the Tottenham and Celtic games filled me with dread. They absolutely did, because I just looked at the way that we were playing. Nothing was functioning. The team looked as though everything was difficult. We couldn't get anything going, and I thought these are going to be just horrendous matches. But the team has picked up in the last month. It would be undeniable to say so. And I've seen more progress in the last 4 weeks than I've seen in the opening 4 months of this season. So I think that's important. I think the display against Tottenham showed that. And then the display yesterday in the actual match showed that Rangers did play with more aggression, more maturity, more tactical discipline, but more heart. A quality that, again, if you'd asked me 3 weeks ago if they had, I'd have said that they lacked badly. They played with a lot of spirit to come back twice. They're still not a great side, but they gave it everything. And that is a thing we say before a game. Just leave it all out there on the park and we'll not be upset at the result. Well, we are, right? I mean, and I'm sure we'd all rather that we'd played terribly and won. So that's one of these hollow phrases that footballers tripped out. But there is a kernel of truth in it, and they did give absolutely everything they had yesterday.
It's all relative, isn't it? Because as you say, I was the same. Absolutely dreaded this entire week with the Tottenham game and the cup final. This game happens, and then you're like, why? And it felt like something happened that night. Don't think it's any coincidence that Igamani comes in the team. You've then got a couple of good results and performances thereafter, and you've got the Spurs performance on Thursday, which I'll be very, very honest, I never thought we had it in us. We played out our skin. We should have won, and then you're getting into Sunday and you're like, well, you know, you're not sitting there saying, oh, we're going to win, but you're like, this is alive, and that's not a position I certainly didn't expect to be in going into this game, is sitting there saying we've got a chance here. I thought we were, you know, I really feared the worst. I feared what happened to Aberdeen in the semi-finals, I've got to be very, very honest with you. And so the perspective has kind of given us a reason for, you know, we're gutted, but as I woke up this morning, it wasn't the total devastation that you feel normally if you lose against Celtic, and it's because of that perspective. Now, people will be listening, they'll be saying, well, that's where we are, and that's a disgrace, and it's a sign of how standards are slipped. Maybe so, I don't know, maybe so, but we are where we are. We've got to start looking forward now, and this is something that I think the change of the regime at the board level has to address within the support, is that we now stop talking about, you know, the past. We draw a line under it, because what I'm trying to say here, Davey, is that your past can become your present, can become your future. And I think we were getting a bit bogged down in stuff that actually was nothing to do with what's happening in the park. And Celtic are really, really in their groove. You know, they've got, it's undeniable. It's a Rangers podcast, right? But it's undeniable that they've got more quality and they've got more squad depth. I don't think there's any question about that. And yet we should have won yesterday. So whilst it matters not a jot right now that you're, you know, as we sit here, because it's another trophy that slipped through our fingers, it matters in terms of what happens next. So, you know, if you were asking me what that actually means, it means finishing with as many points as we can in the league, closing that gap as much as possible, progressing in Europe and getting some pride there, because, you know, that is one high spot this season, and we go out and we win the Scottish Cup. We'll talk about the game, we'll talk about Clement, we'll talk about where, you know, things that matter. You know, but I thought yesterday, the game plan was good. I mean, we'll talk about it, but I came away from yesterday really gutted, and it was gutted because, as you say, Davey, the team gave their all. I think they went to their max. We did not surrender. We did not wilt. You know, 87th minute winner, I thought, and then we come back. That's something that's just not been happening for us lately. So there's a lot of aspects to it that point to the future, but scant consolation in the moment. Absolutely.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, Allen Cup finals are for winning.
They are, David. And as I say, I think the emotional side yesterday, probably 90 emotional and 10, trying to just look at it a wee bit, you know, in a kind of bigger picture. I mean, last night was doesn't matter how we played. Penalties are a lottery. Who cares, Alan? You know, kind of blah, blah, blah. We didn't win. That's all that matters. We still haven't beaten Celtic. We're serial losers. All that stuff, which I think a lot of us felt. But then looking at it, there is a significant improvement, I think, as both you and Andy have said, from the manager for the players. There's evidence over the past few weeks. We always talked about, could we see some real evidence of how there has been progress? Well, I think there's a whole raft of it now over the past, certainly 2-3 weeks anyway. We'd made mistakes, we didn't take chances. But again, I think we're all agreed to resilience and fight. You know, we laid a glove on them. I'm sick for years. Celtic playing against us, laughing at us, a Rangers team walking off and no getting stuck in, no fighting, no closing them down, you know, not really, you know, kind of putting everything into it. I felt that for the outset yesterday as well, we did make it so difficult. Andy said it too, but coming back twice as well for behind, and especially that last one. But you know, the previous, okay, we had at Parkhead, the rabbit in the headlight stuff and all that. I think it was great to see that wasn't the case. And I think it should give us great confidence as well. It'll help them to bond as they're getting to better as a team as well. They'll not want to feel this way again. We do need to get rid of certain players. I think, as we've said, we need to improve quality. But ultimately, and I used my time and patience, but ultimately it has been a massive change. But overall, I'm just really proud of what they did. Absolutely gutted. Do you know what I mean? And it is the old joke, Wallace, listen, son, we didn't win, we're Rangers. But I do feel that there are, and as Andy said as well, I think with the guys coming in as well, with Patrick Stewart as well, kind of Fraser Thornton too. Let's have a wee look at it, and we can just push on. I think the other one too for me was the Scottish Cup final. Even last year, I thought we'd give a really good show and lost a stupid goal near the end. But again, I think this was one even better. And even the external people that normally in the media that would be so kind of anti-Rangers, everyone is just saying. And now again, it's fine for them because they know Celtic have won it. But as I say, I think the bigger picture now is definitely more positivity, David. But it's still hurting me, yeah.
I'm getting a wee bit fucked off after these matches, Andy. In fact, that's an understatement.
Yeah.
With having to talk about game-changing decisions that go against us. And the one yesterday is completely and utterly unacceptable. That is a penalty kick. Every referee who's been asked about it on social media or in the media has said, yeah, the ref's done the right thing. He's awarded the foul. So then VAR should check if it happens on the line. It clearly does. VAR should have told him that's actually a penalty kick. Go and have a look at the monitor. And they didn't. And if it happens as a one-off, it's sore and it's hard to take, and we'll still sit and curse the ref, right, because we're football fans. But this is constant. This is like, 2 out of every 3 Old Firm matches the only times that there aren't these decisions is the games that Celtic have ran over the top of us, right? Because there's no need for them. But the rest, any time there are close matches, if there's a decision that could materially impact the game, it goes against Rangers. There is no justification for that penalty not being awarded yesterday.
We've never indulged in this podcast of conspiracy, and I'm not going to, right? So that's not a precursor to me saying aye, but I think there is. I just think it's incompetence. I'll tell you another thing, the rest of Scottish football need to wake up to, because a lot of them have suffered the same nonsense that we're talking about. I'm talking, like Aberdeen, you think of some of the decisions they've had against Celtic when it's been close. But I was there, and I'm obviously a mile away for that incident because I'm behind the goals. It looked very, very close at the time, and you trust VAR because you're like, well, that's what it's there for, and you've got that kind of expectation now that it would do its job. And it wasn't until you get back in the bus and your phones, alight with these images and videos that you're like, Jesus. And even the Kuhn goal, and I'm not saying this was an out-and-out foul, but the contact with Diamandi is material to the goal. And I would ask the question, is it any different for the Dessers goal that probably cost Michael Bailey's job? We're going to talk about Clement,
no,
but you're going to have a scenario here.
That was Clement, though.
What?
Dessers goal.
No, I'm talking about.
Dessers
I'm talking about.
Clement, but you're right.
No, I'm talking about way back when it was.
That was Ruth.
Aye, Ruth. Aye, sorry, but it was Dessers that done the foul. Sorry, there's that many we don't know. The contact with Lagerbielka.
That's my point. There's that many.
So.
That's my point. And here's the thing, Andy. You mentioned there that you think's incompetence. I don't, right? And nor equally, though, before people get excited, am I saying that they're all out to get us. I'm saying that such has been the campaign that Celtic have waged for so many years now that, and effectively, by the way, they deserve, they know what they're doing, that they are the yardstick for it, that in a 50-50 at the back of a referee's mind is, do I want to submit myself to
media shitstorm,
abuse, media shitstorm that I am going to get on the back of this, and they are preconditioned to just go, and that's easier just to wave it away.
So listen, we're in semantics because that's what I believe as well. It's incompetence via that process. So you've got that. Come on, you can now rightly say he's lost 2 cup finals in a row, wafer thin margins with dodgy decisions, and You've hit an up there. The reason that this is happening is because there's one club. If you think back to their chairman speaking out, and it was back page news, patterns of assistance, and real serious tone questions asked of the referee in Scotland. And since then, we've barely had a decision. I thought Beaton, just to qualify this, I thought Beaton was all right yesterday at the game. I thought he was giving them everything, but as I wake up this morning, I'm probably thinking, well, it's because they had maced the ball and we were biting their heels and fouls were happening, and I thought most of the bookings were actually more or less correct, right? But that decision is the one that changes the game, because if we get a penalty there at the first half of extra time, isn't it? It's game changing, right? So it's remiss of us to just walk past it. And there are bears that you will say, but we should be good enough to beat them, and we, always easier said than done. When you're talking about the inches that win you trophies, these are the kind of things that make a difference. But what chance have you got? You've now got Colum in charge of Scottish refereeing, and I think that's a major problem. I think there's the English guy that left Scottish football. I thought that was a big shame, because I thought at last we're going to have a pair of fresh eyes and none of the baggage. You're right, David. The referees do think twice before they'll make a big decision, because they know they're going to be all over the place, and it's no nice. And in this day and age, it is not nice, and it's not just them; it's their families, everything. Something's done about it.
I think
only the club can do it, Alan.
No, you're right, David. I think what I don't like about it as well is it's the VAR aspect of it, and that's where you think, people do make mistakes, and that's where they'll come in. And it was like there was the Tom Lawrence foul, wasn't it? There was a goal, I think we scored against Celtic, and then they went back about umpteen different passes and went, there was the foul. So again, when this goes to VAR, or you think they should be going to VAR, that's where you're expecting help, but we haven't. But no, the point that you made, I think is right. And I think what we do is, you joke about me going way back, but obviously through the 70s or whatever, it was this whole paranoid Masonic conspiracy come thing all the time that you got. So we don't want to go down that. But I think what Rangers need to do is they just need to calmly, and I think Clement actually did pretty well yesterday, just saying, well, you guys look at it, here's what it is. And I think we've got to keep doing it, but not just doing it and then it goes away in 2 days' time.
That's what we do, yeah. That's what the club does. It makes a bit of a fuss and then it quietens down, whereas they keep on and on and on about it.
And you do it at different levels as well, but hopefully behind the scenes within the SPFL, whatever it is, or the SFA or whatever, Rangers are consistently, the manager will do it, probably through the media as well, but they have to. And as I say, all that you do is you go, look, we're not trying to make out of all this, but there's evidence here. Look at that one, and I think we have to do it. But as I say, I would hate to think nowadays it's Rangers get into this conspiracy stuff. I think we just manage by fact, and we go, here's some stuff here that is pretty plain. Could you explain to us why not? And as Andy says, I can imagine like my old boy, look, this is going to happen. You just need to play better. But you shouldn't have to have this uphill. It's difficult enough at the moment. We shouldn't have this kind of uphill task to go through to actually win the games. We're looking for is just honest.
This is just a decision that you cannot come to if you are watching that and you're giving it fairly. Now, I don't blame the referee for it because he spotted the foul and he's given it. And miles away as well, Andy. But even where he is in the pitch, it's very difficult to see that. But VAR, it's clear, and it should have been checked, it should have been dealt with. But yes, that attitude, incidentally, of we just need to be better, that's laudable, right? That's lovely. But we're already going in with a financial disadvantage. To then go in, and by the way, we need to beat the refs as well, is very difficult to the point of insurmountable. So while it's laudable and it speaks well of us, it is something that we need to be more proactive on. And as I say, Rangers have a tendency to kind of flare up for 2 days about it and then go quiet. We're playing them on January the 3rd. We shouldn't be at the papers till then. It should be constantly. And even if you want to push it, it should be the week before the game. We should be saying, let's hope that there's no one of these game-changing errors that we've been seeing from refs. And I also think then you take it onto the park. And I don't think we are vocal enough on the park about those decisions.
I know I always get criticised, David, for coming in. Sorry, Andy, I know you're coming in. Right. But the thing as well with me in Europe, we've played a few games in Europe. You saw even the Spurs one, we were going in, we were getting stuck in and so on. The referee was letting things go on.
You don't notice the ref. No,
you then get to this game at the final. Rangers are just closing in, snapping. A Celtic player just falls down. 9 times out of 10, it's like, there you go, so that's what gets me. We've seen a lot of European games now. The vast majority of the referees have been absolutely fine. You go to these games and it's like, what's going on?
Yeah,
sorry, Andy.
I totally agree.
No, there's something in that. There is something in that. European football versus domestic football. I've spoke often of the physicality that is allowed to run free in a Scottish game versus Europe, but in these games, it's turned on its head a wee bit. And I agree with you, David, that Clement, I think, don't quote me on this, but at one point he said something about, he kind of poo-pooed the notion that, remember, that's what it was, he defended Colin one time, remember Rangers came out and...
Yeah, it was in January, and Rangers came out again and he shut it
that's
down.
That's right.
And Clement said, the club were pushing...
Yeah, it was the club's voice as opposed to his.
Audio and stuff, and not wanting, and Clement come out and publicly kind of said, no, I don't agree with that. I don't want it done. So, maybe he's learned, from it now. And I agree with Andy. I thought he handled it very well yesterday because I agree with Alan because I think he was right. It's so obvious. You just need to look at it. Everyone can see it, that it was a bad and it was a game changer. There were no chances in extra time. Nothing happened. Both teams were dead on their feet, right? If we'd got a penalty, who know? If we'd missed it, by the way, we could have got it and missed it. And if that had been the case, we wouldn't be sitting here right now complaining about a referee. We'd be saying we had the chance to miss it and blew it.
Yeah. I thought that.
Because I think we're fair. But on to the game itself then, because we could be here all night on that. But on to the game itself. Andy, the manager picked a team and there were a couple of eyebrows raised. First, Tavernier ahead of Sterling, although I think Tavernier was fine. I think it was his best game against Celtic for a long time. I don't recall him getting particularly done. I think the side protected him a lot better yesterday than he had in the past. He was very exposed in the game at Parkhead earlier in the season and we paid the price for it. He also put Bajrami in a position to stop McGregor getting on the ball and running the game for them, which meant that when they did have possession, a lot of it was going between their two centre-halves. And I think our press was the best I've seen it. It worked well yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually got a wee couple of notes here, and you've taken the words out of my mouth. I thought the game plan was pretty much spot on, and the manager takes credit for that, and the players take credit for executing it, because the press is usually the acid test of how things are working or transposing for the screen, because you do a lot of video work now for the screen and the training ground onto the park, and I thought it was excellent yesterday. But I think we had the right players in the right place to do it. I think Bajrami's an intelligent player, and that was him more in his number 10 role. And we've kind of seen him in the wing where he gets exposed defensively, tracking back. But I think it's an easier role for him to play in the centre. I thought he was pretty good yesterday, apart from we'll come to the 4-v wins. I thought Hadji, I've spoken about Hadji. I keep saying that he's not my cup of tea. He's my cup of tea just now because I think he's been excellent. And I thought he worked like anything yesterday, really, really hard on that kind of flank. And when he got the ball, all right, didn't really create that much, but I thought he was positive. His head was up. He was always looking to cross. He was always looking to shoot. I thought he was a bright spark. It was Czerny I was a wee bit disappointed to be over the piece that he just didn't bring what he has in the past couple of games. But I'll go back to it. I think tactically against Spurs and tactically against Celtic, there was a high level of brain power put into that. I think there was a lot of work, and as much as we've criticised Clemente's management team in the past, a lot of that was delivered on Sunday and Thursday.
I'm the same, and I always like to say that we criticise when it's going badly and we'll praise if it's going better. And you're right. I saw a team a few weeks ago that didn't look coached.
Yeah.
That was my problem with it. They looked clueless. They didn't know what they were doing. There was no shape. There was no visible structure to it. That was not the case in the last few games, and certainly not this week, where it was clear there was a game plan done with specific things, which is all we've ever wanted, incidentally, rather than just this blind, we play a 4-2-3-1 going, do your best, lads. Instead, it looked like sides where they had specific jobs that they were detailed to do, and they done them well. Alan, we get into half-time in the lead, a goal up. We knew they'd come right out as the second half. And then something I think we feared, which was concede a goal and then capitulate. 2 bad goals to give away. First one, there's a big slice of ill fortune with a deflection from Taylor, but the second goal is on us. Raskin, who was otherwise excellent and has been recently, and Balogun just make a complete mess of it. Should have dealt with it, and at that point I thought, I've seen this movie before.
Aye, I think so. As you say, David, Raskin just kind of trying to sort of nod it back. Big Balogun was actually almost falling back as it came, so he was off balance, but no, absolutely shot ourselves in the foot, kind of big time. And as you say, I think what was disappointing, like you were saying, previously the shape was good, and even when Celtic had the ball and they're kind of playing it about, we were actually looking at our team just moving from left, moving to right, and waiting to pounce, and counter. And again, it's this losing 2 goals, David, within a short period of time, which it just seems to be ongoing for Lord knows how long. Yeah, but no, really, really disappointed with that one. I think really, what was great in the end though is we then kind of turn it round, don't we? I think Czerny had a great shot, 20 yards out, keeper saves it and so on. We're getting pressure. Diomande has a cracking shot as well, keeper saves it again, and then onto Dio and cracking finish for the goal, in a tight space, yeah.
Yeah, and we were dominant at this point, and I thought, looked likely to go on and win it, and we made it to 3-2, but then we give away a goal. There's another refereeing thing, which I admit I didn't see at the game, which is Dio's taken out, which means he's not there to stop Kuhn. If there is, though, a complaint, it is that when Celtic get into that situation, you kind of know they're going to score. They're going to play the right pass at the right time, and that's what they do, and Kuhn scores to go 3-2. We have a 4-on-1 Andy at the start of the second half that you have got to convert. Mm-hmm. If we go 2-0 up at, who knows, but it would have been a long, long road back for them then. But it is decision-making in the final third. That again, it's a quality issue rather than a heart or a spirit issue. And, we mentioned this before, that you can praise them for the way they stayed in the game and they kept fighting, and that's great. And by the way, you won't get anywhere at all if you don't if you have a team who doesn't have that. But this is then on to the next point, right? Great, you've instilled that in them, but this is a quality issue.
Yep, and we see it all the time. We see it when we're trying to break teams down. Never mind when we're on, playing a team that we're playing a bit more counter-attacking. How do you solve it? You can practice, you can do drills, you can get confidence up, you can sign better players. So we've only really got a couple of options there that we can take just now, and that's to practice and get confidence up. It was Bajrami, wasn't it? That was the one, and we also had the other one when Carter Vickers makes his way back. But I remember at the time when we missed that, I thought, I really, really hope that doesn't cost us, and it did cost us in the long run, because I think if we go 2-0 up, I think they would have had a long, hard look into their souls, because it's the first time they've been in that place for a long time. Alan uses the phrase laying a glove on them. If we'd went 2-0 up, I think there would have been questions that they couldn't answer for once. But listen,
I think because of our European experience as well, Andy, but we would then have keep your shape, but it wouldn't have been like the capitulations.
I think we would have
anyway, if Manny had, we
would have seen it through. But it's a quality thing, Davey. They do have better quality when it comes to the final third. You've seen a number of times we get to the byline or we get a good cutback, whether it's Jefty or Hadji, we don't really capitalise on them, and it would go a long, long way to solving a lot of our problems, to be very, very honest with you.
At that point, I think when it went 3-2, I think we all thought, here we go, late heartbreak again. Yeah. But again, Rangers did get ourselves back into a brilliant ball from Czerny, and it's headed home by Danilo. And then I think we did go for it to try and win, and couldn't quite get the winner. And I think you saw in extra time that both teams were pretty much done in. I've long advocated, by the way, you just get rid of extra time, because the vast majority of them are like that. When teams go into, understandably, I'm concentrating on not losing this rather than winning it. We then get to the penalties. It's a lot. It can go either way. A lot's been made, Alan, of the fact that Ridvan and Butland were in the first five. Haven't seen Butland's penalty. It's not as big a shock as it seemed at the time. But Dessers didn't take one. What's your views on this?
I'm probably against quite a lot. Again, to be honest with you, the players had been practising apparently. I know it's different, not under the pressure, but if you listen to the manager, they've been practising, they've been playing them, and eventually they've had a list. I think Dessers was maybe 6th in the list or something. And again, this whole, a striker, it has to be a striker. If he's not prepared to take it, you get rid of him or whatever. I'm not with that at all. I think I gave a list of, during my time, all the great Rangers penalty takers as well, and people saying full back shouldn't. My goodness, and you look at what Tav done too. So, no, and I also feel as well as it links to the view on Dessers that everyone's got. I personally don't think he's good enough to be a regular at Rangers. Anyway, that's my view. But it's as if suddenly people use that as a kind of lightning rod for all of the disappointment. So, no, if a guy doesn't feel up to it, and you've got these other 5 and so on. At the game, the penalty I thought was an absolute shocker of Ridvan. When I actually looked at it again in the highlights, it was actually a bit of a save for the keeper rather than just a wee sclaff. But no, as I say, from my point of view, and I go back even to people like Derek Johnson, don't remember him taking many. I've seen Cooper missing them, McCoy's missing them. So, as far as I'm concerned, they've got who they fancy taking them. If they're up for it, do it. So, yeah. And good luck, by the way. Yilmaz, all credit to him for having the ball to actually, to go and do it.
I never ever go at anyone who steps up.
No.
If you miss, you miss. It's not like they did it deliberately. So no. I haven't seen criticism of him. He didn't play well.
No, he didn't.
When he came on, he was very poor when he came on. But again, no, I'll never criticise any player that steps up and hits one because it does take balls to go and do it. Andy, your thoughts?
Well, I'm a huge critic of Dessers, but in that moment yesterday, he's got to be the people that feel confident in the moment. And if somebody's legs have gone, then they're not doing you a good turn by taking the penalty. So I don't know if the penalty takers were.
It was a sub. I
know that, but it's not. I don't think it's the day with your legs. I think it's the day with your head. So if he was crapping it yesterday, then I wouldn't want him taking a penalty. The bigger question for another day or for a day after yesterday is, what does it tell you about our number 9 that we've spent a lot of money on and we've got huge expectations? I think it just tells us a bit of what we already knew, which is that cometh the moment, he is not the man, and whether that's in front of goal with time in his hands or whether it's taking a penalty, you can't put your money on him, and it's a bit of damning indictment on him. I don't want to. I'll be honest, right? I don't feel a pile on to him for this is going to help us at all. I'd like to see him go in January, along with a couple of other ones, which is obvious. But if he hangs around, then I don't really want this albatross around his neck where he becomes the shite bag, for lack of a better phrase, to be quite honest with you. It is what it is. It's in the moment. I don't know if you've ever taken penalties. I've taken penalties at extremely low level, and it is, it's no easy. So I cannot. If you think how nervous you are when you're watching that, and could you imagine what it's like to be doing that? It's not an easy thing to do. So I'm no sympathetic, but if he's no wanting it, he shouldn't be taking it. It's just not what we want.
Here's the thing on it, right? Yesterday, when you lose a cup final, then you're disappointed and angry. Right? And you lash out. And usually there's things you can lash out against. But because the performance was, I think, good, and by definition, there were mistakes in it, but we can't sit here and say none of us think we've got a great squad and then go, oh, they made mistakes. They will. They're not great. That's why we are of the opinion on the quality of the squad. But there wasn't really an easy target yesterday to blame and say, well, it was him or, this and the manager, etc. So I think that it kind of piled on to Dessers a wee bit. That is not to excuse the fact that I do think a striker should want to hit penalty kicks, by the way. But you're right, if he felt he was going to miss, so would we feel any better if he'd gone and take the ball and blazed it into the middle of the West Stand? No, we wouldn't have. But it does, though, if you like, offer more evidence as to why he shouldn't be here, for me. So, again, it's one of these two things true at the same time thing, that there's no point getting on to him about it. He wasn't the reason we lost because he never took a penalty. Equally, though, Rangers need better. And that comes into the next point I wanted to make, which is why I mentioned it there. Now, if ever our lack of squad depth was put into question, when we were bringing on subs yesterday, we were bringing on Dessers, who I think the vast majority of us know is never going to do as a striker for Rangers, and he was abysmal when he came on. I think he touched it 3 times and twice he gave it away. Yeah. And we brought on Kieran Dowell, who I think is very fortunate to be a professional footballer, because I've never seen anything from him at all indicating that he should be drawing a wage as a professional footballer. And until we can start to be able to look to a bench and have 3 or 4 options that can come in and really help out.
Yeah, the likes of Danilo, or people that are going to add.
Yeah, people that are going to add. That was true on Saturday morning. Nothing that happened on Sunday has changed that. We know that this is the case. And I think that is a big part of the difference. We don't have the depth that the manager is using a player like that. In the case of Dowell, I do pick on him a wee bit, I feel, and I feel bad about it because the boy hasn't done anything wrong. If someone was kind enough to offer him a contract and he signed it, then he's well within his rights. He didn't agree to pay him. But to me, he's indicative of what was wrong with our recruitment processes in the past, because he brings nothing, he costs you a wage, and I just don't believe for a second, Alan, that there isn't a youngster who could have done what he does for us for far less.
I would agree, absolutely. I would agree. And I'm like you. And I was always saying, many times Rangers sign a player or pick them, I want them to do so well. I can't remember, did Dowell score it for Parker? I don't know, but every time I've seen him, I just don't particularly know. It was like was he going to give his goals from left hand side? And at one point, was he going to be like a Kevin Thompson type player? And I don't mean to. I just don't think the guy's good enough, to be honest with you. And to be honest, that's the thing now, and we need to get this going forward. I think we've done quite well in terms of that all dropping the age, and we've got some assets now over the past kind of month or so. You can see potentially some assets that ultimately, we could make money from and get this trading thing going. But we need to get more. We need to do so much better in the recruitment, either from external or bringing people through. It was good to see even Fraser get on Thursday night and things like that. So we should be doing that. Yeah.
I thought, Davey, that sorry to interrupt. Just on that, I thought Clement handled the subs really, really well. up until that point. I mean, he dealt with the bookings for Jeffrey and Balogun. Whether Balogun was because he was booked or not, I don't know. But I thought he handled the subs. And when he brought in Doyle...
Big Sterling and that.
When he brought in Doyle, I was like, what? You know, I thought it was tailor-made for B. McCausland just to... You know, he's got fairly decent at tracking back.
I just assumed it was to hit a penalty.
Maybe, but you know, he runs like he's got a hip replacement. He's not a further player. And I've spoke about this power balance, this power equation of the team. They've rectified it in the last 4 weeks, and I think Danny has a lot to do with it. The kind of advent of Raskin fixing his cell in that middle of the park gets changed. And then for that last 15 minutes, you bring on Dowell and Dessers, and that power equation just slips away, and actually risk the entire tie for us because you're two men down in that front four all of a sudden. He's got to go.
You've no pace as well with the two of them. Yeah,
he's got to go in January, though. He's got to go. And I know we're moaning about Lammers and Co getting sold for apparently minuscule amounts. See likes of him, I would be like, here's a payoff, go. I really think it's a waste of space, and I'm astounded that Clement still sees a player in him.
Yeah, but... to then go back to what we said at the start, it's a strange feeling because I mentioned, that whole just leave it on the park. That's all we want. As some we say, but don't really mean we want to win, and that's the end of it. But I've been, as I say, very, very critical, and I think deservedly so of the side. But I do think that I've seen a lot of improvements in the last few weeks. I do feel that there's the guts of a good team there. I think there's stuff to work on. I think Clement has been doing a lot better from what was a real nadir a few weeks ago when watching Rangers was unpleasant.
It's just horrible.
It was just horrible. Nobody liked watching as the players looked as though they hated being there. It was just a horrible situation. So credit where it is due. And we now, I think if we look back on 2024, to use our late Queen's phrase, it has been an annus horribilis, but not just on the pitch, but, Hampden and being without a CEO and a chairman for months and months at a time. All we can really do from here, Andy, is say, right, let's make sure we never have a year like that again. And that means that we do go, right, okay, well, we know where we are and we're still off where we need to be. But here are the positive things. We need to move some players out in January, move some in, get more in again in the summer. From now to the end of the season, it's about continuing this improvement, continuing to grow, beating them and, chalking that one off and just getting ourselves set for next season. And that doesn't mean, by the way, you write off this season. You mentioned there, you win as many points as you can from here. You try to go as far as you can in Europe. You win the Scottish Cup, all of those things. But it's all about now building something for the future. And then we can look back on this horrendous year and say, well, that at least was as bad as it got. It's a year zero.
It's got to be worth something. I mean, if you're going to endure it, you might as well make it worth something. And we all know what needs to happen. And I think the club knows what needs to happen, but it was dysfunctional. In the last year and a half, it was dysfunctional off the park. You've got the new CEO coming in today, new chairman coming in today. You've got a raft of people leaving and to be replaced. You've got Coppin in place. I'm a firm believer in, in life, never mind football, never mind Rangers, that you've got to keep looking forward, and it does. You learn from your mistakes, but you don't dwell on them. I think we were starting to dwell as a club and as a support to dwell on stuff too much, and there was a lot of self-flagellation going on, and it's not healthy. It might be justified, but it's not healthy. It definitely isn't healthy, and we've got to be flexible in our thinking as well, because we've spoken this pod about Clement, and I think, I declared the end of the Kilmarnock game away from him. And what we've got to be is flexible in that, there can be redemptions. And I'm hoping that this is what we're seeing here, because the challenge now for Clement and his team is to show that this isn't a 4 or 5 week purple patch, but actually you can continue on and get a 20-game run to the end of the season and do stuff in Europe and progress to the Scottish Cup final and actually win it. And I mean, January 2nd is going to be a big one, because you've got we're in uncharted territory with Clement. You've got a manager here that hasn't won against Celtic in 6 games. Is it 6 games? And 7 now, is it? Right, so you're in territory where, any normal Rangers thinking would see that person has got to go. But we're now in a position where whether it's the dominance of Celtic or the rebuild or whatever you want to call it, is in such a kind of critical stage that I think it's got to the end of the season, and I think that is right. And there's been a wee corner turned, and I don't want to simplify it down to Dessers get out of the team and Igamani come in. That's a lot to do with it, and I think maybe we've got players there that we've got to remember are really young, because Diomande against Dundee United, that was the worst performance I've seen for ages, and you're then wondering, right, why have we paid $4 million for this boy? And then you look at him against Spurs and to a lesser extent against Celtic, you're like, there's a player there. So there is a wee bit of coming and going with these young players, and that'll let this player trade model actually breathe. All this is easier said than done. Easy for me to send a podcast, at a desk and talk at a microphone and say this is what we should do. In the moment, it becomes a really, really hard thing. But the bigger picture is we've got to let a couple of things around the club breathe, because if we suffocate, then we will not progress forward. We're up against, and this is the unpalatable truth, a club that is, I use the phrase, in the groove. Their entire club is in the groove, right? Everything is running smoothly for them. They hardly have a hiccup. They hardly have any drama. They hardly have any turmoil they need to navigate. The closest they got to that was getting beat 7-1 in the Champions League. So they operate now in an environment where they can better themselves, they can flourish. We need to start to create an environment where that happens. Now, the bottom line is, Davey, we all know how this happens. We've got to win games. Got to win games. Winning against Celtic in January 2nd would go a long way to alleviating exactly what I'm talking about. It'd be a shot in the arm, and the more shots in the arm we get, like Nice away, that was a shot in the arm, because you're like, Jesus, where did this come from? There's hope. Like Spurs, you're like, Jesus, there's hope. This team is capable of more than they've shown. We need to keep tapping into that and allowing the players to flourish. I love what I'm seeing with Jeffy, for example. There's a boy we've signed for, where was it, Cyprus? He's a natural football player. I think there's a lot to come for that guy. And if we can get recruitment like that, and again, man, then there is hope, because yesterday showed that in one-off games, maybe not quite across a league so far, but in one-off games, we should be able to compete against Celtic when we're constantly told they're, galaxies ahead, as somebody said to me. There's still room to achieve within this Rangers team and club in the short term, but long term, and long term, I mean next season, we've got to start, really challenging.
I think we need to, behind the scenes, that's obviously I'm pleased with the new appointments and so on. So that's where I think a lot of the work needs to be done as well in terms of the structure. Because I feel the manager, I think he made a comment a month or 6 weeks ago or whatever, saying some of the stuff he's been involved in, or some of the stuff he's, because of the kind of, the gap in there, it's obviously, it took its toll on him. He can now concentrate on, he's kind of, the kind of normal day-to-day stuff. I think at the moment, definitely positivity. We've got Dundee on Saturday, and the bottom line is we need to win. But I think, as Andy says, if we can start beating all of these teams, the other ones in the league, kind of home and away, keep progressing as we're doing in Europe, if we can actually keep it on in Europe, there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be able to beat Celtic in January and go for a run in terms of Scottish Cup too. And I also feel that as a club too, rather than rip it up and start again, which we did with, obviously with kind of Gio and then Michael Beale, there was at one point the pressure really was mounting on get Clement too. I feel now that if we can just keep things going and keep this progression going over the next few months, by the time we get to the end of next season, there's not going to be a rebuild. It's going to be just enhancing where we've got to, and it means then from next season potentially you're thinking we're going to hit the ground running. We're really going to, we're going to put a real show on, and we will really compete with Celtic. So whereas I think if we'd done a rip it up and start again, you've got a new guy in. Some of the people Clement's got, they don't particularly, they feel a bit kind of lost now. The guy wants others, and we've just been doing the repeating. So I think if we can do things over the next few months and just keep progressing in the way, this could turn out to be, a real positive for us. Yeah.
See, it has to be a line drawn under it here.
See, just one wee word on Clement. He's what happens next obviously dictates what happens next with Clement. If this is a false dawn and it's just a wee purple patch went through and we go back to the norm, then he'll not be here, right? That's the bottom line. But I have got a very healthy degree of respect for him, because he's no portrayed himself as a manager under pressure. I think he's been really, really stoic, and in the face of everything that's been flung at him, not just by normal football fans. We've all given him criticism, but a lot of the stuff that he's had to deal with off the park, the Hampden debacle, the fact that there's been no real structure above him apart from copying, really. I think he's been. I think it's shown a measure of the guy, right? So no matter what happens from now on in, I think he has, portrayed a degree of stability for us that we probably didn't realise at the moment, in the moment. And I'm hoping, I really hope, despite what I've said about the fact that I think his time was up at one point, I really hope we're seeing a redemption arc that is remarkable in football, never mind at Rangers, because it would be a hell of a story. I really, really hope he does it.
Yep, so do I. Right then, folks, that will do us for this week. I'll be back here next week for our last show before Christmas to go through the events of the Dundee game. If you want to hear more from us, and there is plenty more, go to patreon.com/heart and hand. My thanks to our producers, Mike Lee and Paul Myers, and my thanks to my two guests today. These are never the easy ones to do. So first of all, to Alan Bradley.
Thanks, David. No, I was going to say enjoyed it. It was difficult, but as always, it's really good going over this with yourself and Andy. Thanks.
And to Andy.
Thanks, David. Book me in for January 2nd, because see if we win, I want a 4-hour special just for me.
Yeah, you can do it. If we win in January, I probably will bring you on if we get it. But you can definitely do it.
I'll be there, Andy. I'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah, probably says a lot actually that after yesterday I was like, I can't wait to take them on at Ibrox. Cannot wait. Rather than oh god, with another round coming up. So there is that, and that was the overriding feeling. Right, folks. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.